a daring, imaginative, dual-purpose project on a scale never before attempted in Australia. A project which was to win world acclaim, the Snowy Mountain Scheme.
Around 100,000 people from more than 30 countries came together to work on the Snowy Scheme. 2/3 were migrants who brought their skills, knowledge and experience to build one of the greatest engineering projects ever undertaken.
The foundations of Australia's current modern engineering expertise evolved out of the Snowy. They had the need to develop new methods using the current world's best practice because they encountered situations that had never been encountered before in the world.
So the Snowy Scheme was a really interesting project for Australia as a country because the resources to deliver the Snowy Scheme didn't exist in the country. So it was the first international resourcing strategy really applied to Australia. It accumulated skills and experience from all over the world and really drew them together to go and do something that hadn't been done before.
The Snowy required the engineering expertise and therefore we imported and they passed that expertise on to Australians who joined the scheme.
In the scientific laboratories, geological details were studied, materials tested, and hydraulic models built to scale to assist in the design of projects.
On the back of such a remarkable achievement, the Snowy experts took their skills abroad, providing technical assistance on Australian aid projects in developing countries.
SMEC's technical expertise and its association with the Snowy project that counted for a lot.
Well, you're absolutely having this history of this, or the connection, I should say, to the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme was certainly something that opened doors to SMEC.
To walk into an office, the UN, World Bank or other executing agencies, with the SM, the Snowy Mountains, in your title counted for a lot. The recognition and association of the company with such a major project which had been a stunning success and those technical attributes had passed through to its staff and I believe still have, that's what really sets SMEC apart.
SMEC built a reputation as an expert in roads, bridges, dams and hydropower, taking on significant projects across Africa and Asia.
SMEC has developed an incredibly effective business model.
Unlike our competitors who bid for a job and then take the work back to their head offices, SMEC's approach was quite different. They established subsidiaries in the country where the work was and recruited local staff working side by side with SMEC engineers.
We find good local people who could actually join us.
The knowledge is transferred to the local person and they become engineers able to develop projects in the future.
So after a certain time, the local businesses are run by local people with our help. So that's why we always say local people, global experience.
SMEC's engineers were eager to work in developing nations and make a difference in communities where having basic transport and water infrastructure in place could change lives.
At the time I joined SMEC, I really felt like the whole world was open for me and I was really attracted to the fact that I could travel to various countries and meet people, meet communities and try to understand their problems and help them to improve their livelihood.
To me it was very enriching, I mean, to be able to live in those countries not only as a tourist or short term, but for longer periods of time. I certainly got a much better appreciation of their cultures.
SMEC has always been a company of opportunity for people to extend their experiences overseas, particularly in developing countries.
SMEC is like the United Nations, really. I mean, often we are in a room and every single person comes from a different background, different nationality.
We had a regional managers meeting in Nepal, and out of 55, we had about 42 nationalities. It was almost like we had a mini General Assembly of United Nations.
SMEC's resilience, I believe, comes from its overseas diversity, the diversity of its network, the extensive range of dispersed offices throughout the world, working in projects in tough environments. That, to me, has allowed the company to be nimble, to be adaptive, and to be able to anticipate change before it happened.
During the 1980s, new projects were undertaken in a further 20 countries, including China, Egypt, Ethiopia, and Saudi Arabia. By 1991, SMEC was working in nearly 30 countries.
When you've actually lived in one of these communities that's impacted, you see the huge gains they get from very, very small investments. It's not so much a major piece of infrastructure, it is enabling kids to get to school or a farmer to get produce so they can actually sell and support their family.
Working on these projects, you become incredibly involved with the people that you're working with, almost at a family level.
SMEC staff develop relationships with local communities from really ever since the company worked offshore. And in the early days, that was really as an offshoot of the Snowy Mountains Authority, executing and helping to execute Australian aid programs overseas. SMEC engineers and their families working in that environment could hardly stand by and do nothing. They were naturally, as Australians do, I think, generally when working offshore, wanted to engage, wanted to be part of and recognised by local communities, not to be just doing their job. And then in Nepal, I guess more towards into the 90s and late 90s, there was a move to formalise the work that staff did, and the foundation was indeed created in 2001.
It's great to produce a profit, but it's really important to make a really positive impact in the world, and I think SMEC's got that in its DNA now, which is fantastic.
After decades of operating overseas, the story had come full circle. By the early 90s, SMEC had become a major private player in Australia, winning large projects and expanding its offices in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane.
The fact that we had a diverse and distributed network of offices throughout the world and a variety of nationalities, ethnicities and cultures working within the company, I think was a terribly important part of the mix when the company was forced time and time again to reinvent itself.
SMEC has always had a history of supporting innovation, and I think on that basis it's always been supportive of individuals in going out and coming up with new ways of doing things for the business.
We have a very caring culture and we want to support people through that change, and we're open to continually learning how to do things better and differently as the organisation keeps evolving.
The genuine relationships that we hold across teams and across individuals underpins a great culture. I also think that SMEC has an amazing culturally diverse workplace as well, where it's not something that we celebrate because it's hardwired into the fabric of the way in which we operate. And I think the other thing is that it's a really exciting place to be because there's lots of opportunity to go and explore career options and ways in which to grow as a person and a professional as well.
October 2019 marks 70 years since our origins on the iconic Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme. Just like the brilliant minds that perfected many Australian engineering technologies and shared them around the world, our people continue to innovate today. And it's still that extraordinary spirit, resilience and drive that forms the backbone of our organisation.
I think some of SMEC's greatest strengths today is the passion and professionalism that people across all roles and levels in the organisation bring to what it is that they do every day.
It's almost a cliche that everybody says it's people, but it is true. SMEC has wonderful people and specialists that are unique in many ways.
People genuinely care about each other. Relationships are driven on trust, and it brings out a high-performance approach to delivery and to clients.
In 2016, SMEC was acquired by Singapore-based Sabana Jurong, joining a global group of specialist companies, expanding our capabilities and enhancing the solutions we offer our clients.
I think the future for SMEC is a really exciting place. Fundamentally, they'll be driven by more growth, more diversification, and more exciting people to go and work with, and an even greater focus on our clients and getting fantastic outcomes on the projects that they're delivering.